Well, hi, Adam. It's good to talk to you again. I guess it's been what? It's been over a year now since we were on site together with all this pandemic stuff going on. How have you been doing?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, excellent. I was just enjoying reading your initiation report and some of the follow-up coverage that you put out. And I got to say, I got to hand it to you. I think your experience on site and the fact that you've been following the story for a few years has really come across in that work. So anyway, it's a good read for sure.
Oh, thank you, Chris. And I still think back to the first time we met when you were a 3.2 million market cap. You've come a long, long way.
I got to say, like you must have been. I think you were one of the first guys from with an analyst hat on that was visiting the project, and I guess that was back in the Hinge Zone discovery days, eh?
It was, yeah, absolutely. I still remember seeing the drill rigs there testing the hinge and the limb, and the LP was just a dream, I suppose, at that point.
It was maybe just a twinkle in our eye, especially in Bob's eye, and
Exactly.
yeah. But so I guess we wanted to sit down and have a bit of a chat here. So you can fire away. I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. I know that you're very busy. You've got a lot going on, so I'll try to keep the questions tight. First, and let's just discuss the fact you just raised $70 million and you now have over 100 million in the bank for exploration. That's fantastic. And I was wondering if there's anything you wanted to share about the financing.
Well, effectively, we've been talking to a number of institutional type accounts for a couple of years. Like you know, as well as I do, that from the market perception or perspective, we kind of came out of left field. I don't think there's a better description for it than that. So there was a lot of education over the last 2 years, and especially in the last, it's not even 2 years now, but since May of 2019, where we put out the first LP fault results. So finally, we've seen in this financing a number of big institutions come in, and some of the names that you'd recognize would be probably like Franklin, BlackRock, Tribeca. These kind of guys would be sort of household names in the mining investment space. So they're now on the shareholder registry alongside 1832 funds and Van Eck as well. So the institutional ownership now is, I believe, up to about 30% of Great Bear.
Oh, that's excellent. Well done. That's an important development for the stock.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's, I guess, just move on to some of the questions. You've got a busy year planned, and I'm wondering if you could, at a high level, describe to us what the plans are for drilling in 2021 and what the goals are.
Yeah, thanks. Well, with the money that we've added to the treasury now, I think it's safe to say that we're going to see an expansion on the drill program. And up to now, the last more than a year now, we've been running with 5 drill rigs, and that's a lot of drilling. Like we keep putting out results every couple of weeks, so you can see that it's generating a lot of meters. But with the extra money that we have on hand, I think you're going to see an upscaling on that program this year. Right now, I mean, we're working with a number of people that are experts on resource calculation and projections, and we'll have some feedback from them in the next few weeks that'll let us know just how many more drill holes we really need to get that first maiden resource drilled in the shallow surface between, say, like 0 meters depth and 500 meters depth. Of course, the rest of it is blue sky. Anybody that reads your report would recognize that. So you're going to see more drilling, and that's going to get us to the point where we have that initial maiden resource drilled off. And I think we'll have some more details about the timing on that in the very near future.
Excellent. Recently, you've mentioned that you plan on doing 100 sections along the LP fault zone. And I'm wondering, you've got 4.2 kilometers of strike there. What portion of the fault zone will that cover with 100 sections?
I think there'll be portions of it that are more densely drilled than others, like especially where we see very good concentrations of the high-grade mineralization. I mean, we've got it on the Verify model. You see these big panels, they're hundreds of meters, sometimes over a kilometer, where you see we just consistently hit this high-grade kind of spine that runs along the middle of the LP. So, but I mean, those sections will occur over about over 4.5 kilometers of strike length, actually. So it's going to be a lot of drilling, and it should really nicely represent that tip of the iceberg, that shallow portion of the LP mineralized system. So you'll see results coming out from everywhere along there.
Okay. And I remember in the early days, and I'm speaking very early days of Great Bear, I remember sitting down with you and Bob, and there was a number of targets that you wanted to test. We were looking at the geophysics. And I think the LP fault might have been one of those at that point. And I'm wondering if now, when you look at the same map, you still see targets that you guys want to go and test, and do you think there's the potential for even more?
Like you've been to site and you know that's the case, right? So it's kind of funny.
I gotta ask though.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're looking, the whole project sits in the axis of this big regional D2 fold. And that's the same situation if you look at the main Red Lake gold mine, right? Look at Evolution's operation there. And there tends to be strings of these gold occurrences adjacent to these fold axes. So we've got the LP fault coming through and we've got the D2 fold axis. They're both major planar or linear features, depending if you're looking on a map or in the earth, and they tend to localize deposits. So, I mean, like we're looking along the D2 fold axis, like the Dixie limb zone, the hinge zone, the arrow zone, these kind of things. And there's no end to those. They seem to pop up where you get changes in the geology, any sort of strength contrast, geological contrast that'll let the gold bearing fluids pop up. So there's a number of those targets that we have. But I just don't want to get distracted from the fact that, like with the LP and the Dixie limb and the hinge, I mean, these are major discoveries from a Red Lake context, from an Ontario gold context. They do deserve to have the focus of the drilling. So, you're going to have, it's more than 90% of the drill holes that are going in on the project are going to be on these zones showing, I mean, we've made the major discoveries. We need to show the detailed drilling so the market in the world can understand how big these things are, what the gold distributions are like, right? So most of the focus will be on stuff.
As I figured it would be, but it's always nice to test those other ones if you have the time and money.
Yeah.
In the presentations that you guys provide, which are always excellent, very detailed, there's often a cross section of the LP faults. In that cross section, there are areas that appear to not contain as much gold, and I'm wondering if you could describe the differences between those areas and the broader areas that actually contain, as far as we can tell so far, most of the gold.
That's interesting. Like I have this conversation a lot, and like when you look at the public data that we have, every drill hole from the LP is sitting there on the internet. You can download it from our website whenever you want and plot it up. You've done it. I saw it in Google Earth. You had an overlay based on where the drill colors are. So, but if you look at that, like in the middle of the system, like you see a change in direction from northwest trending to more east-west trending on the LP fault. And it's around where that middle kind of 4 or 5 kilometers where it changes direction that the system is at its fattest. But the middle few kilometers on that, it's especially fat. And if you do a drill hole across the system there, you'll see gold beginning in the drill holes on one side, and 400 meters away, that's where the gold will stop coming into drill holes. So the gold mineralized portion of the system in an estimated true width is close to 400 meters. You can see that in the drill data right now and all the assays. Remember, we don't publish all the low-grade halo material that's around the highlight intercepts, but I mean, the system there is really wide. It contains multiple panels of high grade and this big halo of lower grade material. So in the middle, we do most of the drilling because on an ounce per ounce basis in the future, if I put in 10 drill holes into the middle area, I'm going to generate likely more ounces than out towards the margins where, the host rock is skinnier. The mineralized system is still there. It's the same gold mineralization, same alteration. It's just that the host rocks, that felsic volcanic package that hosts it, is narrower. So as you go out to the southeast, go off to the northwest, you basically have a narrower host package. So that's why you see the system getting skinnier, is because the host rocks are skinnier in those locations. Doesn't stop the gold. Like we've drilled gold for about 11 kilometers in total. It's just that it's really obvious that middle 4 or 5 kilometers is where most of the ounces are going to be.
And you mentioned the southeast portion. There's been a fairly low density of drilling in that portion of it. Is there a significant change in the geology other than it just narrowing, or do you see that there's potential for something different there?
It's just narrower host geology, but the mineralization looks the same. The VG, the visible gold, is it's very similar looking. The alteration is very similar looking. There you might get more chute-like geometries of high-grade gold. That would be my guess as a geologist, a structural geologist. But where you're in the middle of the system, you get these big sheets and panels of the high-grade gold. So in in the year as it progresses in 2021, obviously we're going to do more dense drilling in that area too. It's just that you'd expect, again, it's a narrower host rock package, so the system is still there. It just won't have as much gold as to that middle few kilometer area where it's fat and very well developed.
Right. And there's certainly quite a lot of gold in the fat area as you described it. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. What do you think the biggest challenges are going to be for you this year as you look to put out a resource early next year, if that's still the timing?
Yeah, it's really now into a little bit of the engineering and projection hands. So there's modeling going on what we found so far, and that's giving us basically how much variation you get within the zones, ultimately what capping levels you have to use. We're doing metallurgy as we speak, so we've talked about that. So there's metallurgical work, there's metallurgical drilling that's gone on. There will be information on all this over the course of the year. But it's really coming down on our end to just kind of managing expectations. And I think the market at large is not really understanding. Like I get this conversation a lot. I don't get it from you. We've never had this conversation, but I get people will try to bucket us in with other pre-resource stories in the industry. The difference is really apples and oranges, because Great Bear is not looking at it's not a normal pre-resource gold discovery. As you can see, based on all the data, the hundreds of holes, I think we've got 450 holes, or roughly, that we've got now that we've seen. And that data, when you're looking at it on the internet, when you're looking at it on all the news releases, is showing you they have a much bigger system. So it's really, over the year, let's keep the education process going, and let's show people that it's not a normal discovery. It can't be really valued like a normal discovery. Because of the jurisdiction, because of the infrastructure access, and most of all, because of the high grade that goes to surface and the overall size of the system. You're really not looking at something that's easy to categorize. So that's what we have to do. That's our job this year, is to get that message across, and just do it with the drilling. Like, it's one thing for me to sit here and flap my arms and say whatever I want to say, but the proof is always in the pudding. Just follow the drill results. They will drive you towards that valuation point. If more people just read your report and sort of understood what the scope of the project is likely to end up. But I think it's great work that you've done. It's detailed into things on a section by section basis. I think more people would understand where the project is likely going, and we'll prove it. We'll prove it with the drilling over the course of the year.
And I guess continuing on that, I remember in the early days, the Lynn zone was compared to the Madsen deposit just to the north of you. Do you see any good geological analogies for the LP fault zone?
Like the LP fault, it's a bit like, I've said this before, I always think it's kind of funny. It's a bit like the love child of something like the Malartic deposit and the Hemlo deposit. So, like Hemlo, it's got this predictable sort of shear zone hosted high grade gold, and Hemlo was famous for that. I mean, you'd hit again and again and again along 2.5 kilometers. It's very reminiscent of what we're doing right now. But something like Malartic has the scale and the presence to surface, and clearly kind of a bulk tonnage kind of potential. And we're also looking at that with the LP fault discovery. So, and then it's also a bit of a hybrid. You'd have to graft onto that love child. You'd have to graft a normal Red Lakes type system. So if people are familiar with like a pure gold, for instance, they're looking at high-grade gold hosted in veins within the mafics and the ultramafic rocks. That's what we have, which is beside the Hemlo Malartic love child of the LP fault. So you really have this arrangement where it's a highly unusual conjunction or coming together of these different deposit types. But the net result is it's big, it's continuous, and it's right to surface, right beside the highway, just outside of Red Lake. So that's what we're really talking about here. So you can't, one of the hardest parts I have of talking about the LP discovery is the fact that it's in Red Lake, because people are looking at it, looking for a Red Lake analog. There is no analog in the Red Lake area to what we found. You have to go between Sault Ste. Marie and Thunder Bay, and you have to look at the Hemlo deposit if you want a similar sort of felsic volcanic hosted, shear zone hosted high-grade gold system. So, but yeah, that's some of the differences that we're going to explain a lot over the course of the year too.
Okay, and you provided me actually a good segue to the next question is, the Red Lake camp has had many successes, but it's also had failures. And I'm wondering if you see differences with Dixie that make you believe that Dixie will not suffer from any of the problems that others have had?
Yeah, like I said, on the LP fault side, it's going to be different host rocks and a different type of system. You can't point anywhere else in Red Lake to a big bulk system like this. Like we know, like the Red Lake gold mine is well understood. Evolution's doing great work there now, but this is a narrow underground mining, right? So with what we're looking at here, clearly there's going to be a bulk component of some type. I don't know what that's going to take, but it also has the high grade potential of going to depth. So some ways similar, but the host rocks are different. And I know in Red Lake often the ultramafic units can be challenging from a ground control position if you're thinking about mining. You don't have that with the LP fault because it's hosted in felsic volcanics. So it should be, from what we're seeing, a totally different kettle of fish.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Not too long ago, Great Bear's shares reached almost $20 and have settled back. And I'm wondering, what do you think the market's waiting for, other than gold prices, to see Great Bear's shares move higher? And unfortunately, from my perspective, the excellent drill results you've been putting out haven't quite had the impact that one would expect, especially if you didn't have so many excellent drill results. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this and what you as the CEO are focusing on to get the share price going back towards that $20 and hopefully towards my target price, which is even higher than that.
I think it comes down to what's the underlying value for the company and for the project, and that it's really with us quite simple. It's that apples to oranges comparison that I mentioned before. So right now, if you look at a sort of consensus in the industry, people know what we found is big. They know it has a lot of strong potential, but that number hasn't been quantified. And I think with what we're seeing, if you want to say what's comparable to Great Bear, you have to find me another project that clearly has the kind of tier one potential that we have. And where are you going to look for that? I mean, there's only arguably 20 to 30 of those in the entire world. So nobody else, as far as I know, is developing an asset like this, kind of globally right now. So it certainly is looking like one of the most exciting gold discoveries in Canada in many years. And these are grandiose type statements. And there's a difference between saying a grandiose statement and backing it up with reports and data and results. We're doing the results. They come out on a steady basis, like you say, but I think the market is waiting to see how big is big and how good is good. And by good is good, I mean, what are the economic implications for having a find like this with the high grade that goes to surface in the big bulk tonnage system? And because there's so few comparables, you don't have an appreciation of what this is. So I think by the end of the year, even before, like I got to say, even before the resource reports come out on the project, every couple of weeks on average, there's going to be more drill results going to the market. I imagine, like, if we're at the point right now where we've got 250 holes published on the LP fault and another 150 holes on the limb and hinge, that's 400 holes. Imagine what it looks like by the time you get to 500 holes or 600 holes. And that's happening this year. There'll be enough data published on this project. Actually, let me rephrase that. There'll be more drill holes published on this project than most companies have when they've already gone through the feasibility stage of publication. And it's simply a function of what we're drilling here is so big that it takes a long time to do. And the market will appreciate that over time. So it's now a matter of, you don't have very long to wait because the pace of work is increasing. So if we did well before with 3 rigs or 5 rigs, whatever the case was, how will that be when it gets to 6 rigs, 7 rigs, 10 rigs? And the results are even more common. I think, this is a long way to answer your question, Adam, but I think there are very few companies that will be able to match what we're going to do here over the course of 2021. And that builds a sort of momentum of its own.
Well, I certainly look forward to seeing those results. It'll keep me busy, and I'm sure your investors busy as they digest them.
Yep.
And, I know this is not a one-man show. You've got a great team behind you, and I've met many of them, and I want to congratulate you and your team for the discoveries that you've made and the hard work you've put in, and it all seems to be going in the right direction, and well done. So thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time today to talk with me. I really appreciate it. I've learned something, and hopefully those that watch this will also get something valuable out of it.
Well, thanks, Adam. We appreciate the time that you put in the project over the last few years, and I definitely appreciate the insights that you've got on it as well. So I hope that people, take the time to read some of the material you put together. I really think that there's a lot of insight in there. So yeah, hopefully we talk again soon.
I'm sure we will. Thanks so much, Chris. Have a good day.
You too.